Am I just a victim? And do I need to stop whining about my problems and get a real job? I don't know. Let's talk about it. So, by trade, by profession, I am a communications person, right? My degree is in political science, and I've mostly used that political science degree for writing, researching to write, creating, digital and social media campaigns. It's all about writing and communications for the most part. So specifically, I call myself a storyteller. Now, a storyteller is, at its most base level, someone who tells stories. Storytelling is one of the oldest forms of communications, going back centuries and centuries and centuries. It is a long-held oral tradition dating back to before we had a written word, and has existed as those written words have grown and changed and evolved to all the different languages that we have today. Now, when we're talking about storytellers in today's job industry form, there's usually two different types. There are people who tell their own stories, and there are people who write those stories or put them out on whatever publishing platform it is, whether it's writing it for a media article or putting it together for a podcast episode. And then I guess there's a secret third one, which would be someone who does both. I am someone who does both. I tell my own story, and I also help people tell their stories. That is what I get paid to do, and it's also what I spend my time for free doing here on TikTok and other social media platforms, and out in the community and all the different things. Now, have people in my real life and also online told me that I need to get a better hobby? Yes. Why? Because people do not like you talking about your negative experiences. Why? Because all of the systems that we live under, the anti-blackness, the capitalism, the patriarchy, all of the things, they rely on us being silent about our pain. Zora Neale Hurston, I'm going to butcher this quote, but she said something to the effect of, if you are silent about your pain, they will kill you and say you liked it. And that's exactly what they want to be able to do. So me, as a storyteller, some of the things that I talk about are my experiences with domestic violence, my struggles with being a single mom, the issues that I've had working within the nonprofit industrial complex. These are not things that the world wants us to talk about. Why? Because then we'd be telling on a lot more men who are actively participating or actively inflicting domestic violence. Then we would have a lot more moms opting out of motherhood. As we have seen with recent reports, it's like women are opting out of motherhood, people with uteruses are opting out of motherhood at the highest rates in our country's history. And the nonprofit industrial complex likes to act like they're the mama bear of the world, and they are not. They are a business. And if we call that out, then maybe instead of going to work for them, we would just build our own communities and create our own mutual aid and not buy into that system. They don't want that. Also, because of the identities that I carry, primarily being a black person, primarily being a mom, and being a rural person, these groups of folks do not like to talk about their pain for a lot of systemic and institutionalized reason. A lot of people think I'm a little bitch for getting on here and whining about shit, but that's all right because I know we're all going through it. I'm just the only one who doesn't mind being called a little bitch and who is courageous enough to come on here and talk about it, because I want that to change. I do not want us to continue having to suffer under the current conditions in which we live. Therefore, it may look like I'm just being a victim and I'm just whining about the same thing all the time, but you know what happens every time I share my story? Someone in the comment agrees. Someone in the comments says, yes, I have been through that too. Someone reaches out to me in my messages privately and says, hey, I'm going through this too. And that means more to me than anybody on this earth thinking I'm a little bitch. I'll wear that title. I don't care. Somebody's got to. Because if we sit here and we stay silent, nothing will change. That is the power of storytelling. Storytelling is one of the hardest things emotionally that an individual might have to do, but it is also one of the easiest ways that we can move these movements forward, that we can create the change that we want to see in our communities. And so that's why they want to categorize it as, just playing the victim and just crying and bitching and, oh, go get a real job. Because what's a real job? A real job is usually making a white man some money. And that's the thing with storytelling. You can do it for free. See, this capitalistic system that we live in, they really hate it whenever you're not concerned with making money, because they know that as much money as you make, they're going to profit 10, 20, 100 times off of that. So baby, don't stop telling your story. Don't let anybody make you feel bad for sharing your story. You get on here, you speak your truth, and that we speak truth to power over here. All right? Keep going. And if you're going to call me a little bitch, just make sure you do it to my face, because I fight for real. All right.